Ladies and gentlemen, recovering emo kids, welcome to Emo Kids Anonymous. I'm your host, Rob LaFoon. Unfortunately, my co-host Amanda couldn't be here today, but she's here in spirit in the form of Patrick Stump Funko Pop. Now, today we're joined by an incredible guest. Not even maybe, legitimately my favorite guest we've ever had on this podcast. I ain't gonna lie to you. You see the smile on your boy right now. I just got done interviewing Jason Tate. Jason Tate, if you don't know, founded, the creator, the head of AbsolutePunk.net, Chorus FM, the most important websites in general of my entire life. If there was no Jason Tate, there is no Rob LaFoon as you know him today. And believe me, I shouted and rained down my praise upon him an obnoxious amount. I kept him well over time. I picked this man's brain as much as I could. This is legitimately maybe my favorite interview we've ever done on this show. But before we dive into that, we got to handle the business bullshit, obviously. Do me a favor, toss this podcast, a follow, subscribe to us to stay up to date. We do multiple interviews with bands every week, plus episodes. You can check us out at emoKidsAnonymous.com. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Emo Kids Anonymous at Twitter. I believe we're Emo Kids Anon Pod. You can check us out there. I recently released a couple articles over on Never a Phase Network, the Freshman 15 and the Emo All-Stars. These are my list of the bands that I believe had the best years of 2025, as well as the hot prospects that I believe are bound to blow the fuck up. That's over at Never a Phase Network. That's a website that I've been working on and building up with my friends, my colleagues, and honestly, our number one main inspiration is Jason Tate. And this conversation was one that I personally would have, I don't have thousands of dollars, but if I did have thousands of dollars, I would have paid this money to pick this man's brain. So this episode was a treat. Again, we're in the middle of some business. So go check out www.neverphasenetwork.com, www.emokidsanonymous.com. One more piece of business though. Fellas, I need you to look at me, okay? I see your faces. They're looking real weathered, okay? You're looking real weathered. You're looking real fucky. You know that more than 1 in 3 men just ignore their face routines and all. 1 in 3 is the number they gave me, but I call bullshit on that. I think it's 6 out of 7 maybe. Shout out Trophy Case Kid maybe. I don't know. We just ignore taking care of our face. It seems expensive. Maybe it's something the girlfriend, the wife does, and you go along with it because of her, but you don't really buy it. Let me tell you. It ain't all fucking pseudoscience and snake oil bullshit, okay? It ain't snake oil tanker, shout out Alkaline Trio here, okay? I'm about to tell you about something called Protégé. Protégé. That's the all-in-one face treatment to get your face going from fucky to fresh, okay? Founded, co-created, headed by our friend in Midtown in Cobra Starship, Gabe Saporta. Protégé is good boy protection, okay? This is something that we can rub on your face. The all-in-one treatment, as I said, that will get you looking real nice. You don't want to look real catcher's mitty. You don't want to look all weathered. You don't want to look your age, basically, is what I'm saying. You see Gabe Saporta, that's the most handsome man in the scene. Mid-40s, gorgeous man, could pass for mid-20s maybe. Look, I'm mid-30s, I could pass for mid-60s maybe, okay? I look friggity fucked over here. But the team at Protégé is helping that, and they're here to help you too, okay? You just go over to protege.com. You enter www.protege.com and you enter Emo Kids at checkout, and your first bottle of Protégé is only, hold on, $10. $10 for your first bottle of Protégé when you enter the code Emo Kids at checkout. That's right. Good boy protection. Get your face looking real nice, all right? You don't got to say beauty tricks for the ladies. And just because you're hearing this on this podcast right now, you're playing it in front of your phone, which is all knowing, all powerful. Shout out to the Zuckerbergs and the Musks and the Wuhanians, whoever that run our lives. They're gonna fucking bombard you with advertisements for $200 face serums. Now, all these treatments, they're telling you the retinol is gonna do this. We got this special one, this and that. Protégé, all in one, $10. Emo Kids at checkout, protege.com. Now, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, arguably the biggest, the best, the greatest interview we've ever had on the history of this show. Emo Kids Anonymous has been around for about, I want to say, 7-8 months or so, and personally this is the one I'm the most proud of. This is the man who was once ranked by Blender magazine as one of the 25 most influential people on the internet when it comes to music. He started this website in the 2000 to be exact, as a fan site for MXPX and Blink-182, evolved, sold the website in 2008 to Buzz Media, bought it the fuck back in 2016, and along the way has stayed true to himself. The man that showed us that music mends broken hearts. The godfather of 2000s pop punk, emo, all that. If you lived online, you know this, man. And I ain't talking about Tom from MySpace. Shout out, Tom. I respect you and all. But this was the real goat, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, here's my interview with Jason Tate.
Used this platform before. I was like playing around with a new thing to be like, is my camera actually working on this or not? It's like a day on Teams or Zoom of always messing around with different things.
I was going to say, you're probably one of the more technically savvy guests that we normally have on. Normally it's bands. I'm like, they never do this. And I'm like, gotta remember that most of these guys never had office jobs or anything in their life. Like a calendar invite. I can't find the link. I'm like, I'm going to send it to you over Instagram DM, bro. You're good. Like, okay, let me level it out.
Feel that. Oh, yeah. Can you hear me okay? Everything works. Sounds good?
Everything is perfect. Thank you.
Cool.
Awesome. So, thank you for joining me on a personal level. Just to start things off with, of all the guests we've had on this show, personally, this is one of maybe my favorite. It's an absolute honor to have you on the show. I was an AbsolutePunk.net kid. I seriously, like, I remember reading, like, when I was doing some research, it's like, oh, Blender magazine, like, most impactful, I was like, oh, like that. You got one of those influential lists, but it's like number 17 or 18 on Blender's list. Number 1 in my heart, Jason. Jason Tate, everybody. I guess for those who don't know, a little brief rundown of who you are and what you do today.
Yeah. So I started Absolute Punk when I was 15, I think, something like that. I am now 42. I'm feeling very old on the other side of things. Website was what I did for a very long time. I think it was around 2014 or so is when I moved over to the new version of the website, chorus.fm. So it's more of a personal blog, still about music, but less chaos, less everything that Absolute Punk became by the end, and more of a like personal passion project for myself.
Okay. How are they in that regard? You say, how would you expand on that a little there?
So Absolute Punk got very, very big, as everybody kind of knows. But not only did it get big from a lots of people reading it standpoint, but it became outsized in my life. Like, it became a thing that I spent a lot of time on, all the time on the internet, reading different things, the forums itself, the community.
Oh, you were involved in there. I was going to say you were. Many users would be, oh, Jason. I'm like, you just probably said something dumb, and he's probably been dealing with 26 hours worth of work bullshit in a 24-hour day.
Yeah, I think it's a little of both, like it's growing up online. It's growing up in a community like that. It's being 15, spending most of your time online, 20 and an idiot, and just like learning how to be a human being and going through that process, I think is tough for everybody. It's really tough to do it online. It's tough to do it in a spot where you have that kind of focus on you. And I'm again, like a microcosm of what like an actual real celebrity would be like, or what somebody with a real following. But it was still a version of that, right? It's a hyper version of a bunch of people online spending time there. And then so not only did I start feeling really burnt out on that, again, I started this when I was 15. It's all I knew. It was the only thing that I had done. And spent a lot of time in the forums, then the community itself. And then around similar time is when we were seeing a lot of hostility and just negativity in the world start building up, right? So this is 2014, moving into 2016, moving into that election, moving into all of that stuff.
Yeah, wonder what happened around then that could have caused that,
heavy stuff going on. And I started realizing I couldn't keep doing something that was actually making me like miserable. Like, I was actually unhappy on a day-to-day basis because I knew I'd have to get online and see this sort of toxicity, see like just people being mean to each other. And I wanted something that I could pull back from. I wanted something that I could take a little bit more personal ownership of and say that it wasn't a bunch of people posting news online. It was me. It was my personal blog, basically writing about music that was important to me, and then to pull back and run a community that I was also happy with, a community that had a little bit more moderation, a little bit more stricter conversational rules about what we were going to talk about, what could go on there, and just pull it back and say that like if I woke up on a day and didn't feel like engaging in that, I felt okay doing that. I felt okay to step back and saying, I don't need to be online all day. I don't need to read the internet. I don't need to go.
Yeah, I don't need to be involved in. I don't need to be responding to everything coming through because, I mean, you mentioned very like niche, micro celebrity, this or that. In a way, it was kind of like a precursor to what we have today. Where like, yeah, nobody's really that famous, but in their own bubbles, they're massive. Like people did have like these. I get parasocial is the word they use now. Parasocial relationships. I mean, even like commenting on like relationships and stuff. Like just people like, brother, I'm just the guy providing the information here
Yeah.
for you.
It just became too much. And like, I mean, I have a very addictive personality and would become like obsessed with it. Like I needed to check out what was happening. I needed to be the first person to post news. I needed to know what was happening in the community itself. I wanted to be checking up on that, which then led to me spending way too much time on Twitter, spending too much time like engaged in all of that stuff. Where I started realizing this is just not good for me. Like this puts me in a bad spot where I'm not feeling like my days are good. And it took away from like the original joy of why I was running Absolute Punk was I like music and
Oh,
I want to actually like have that conversation with people about the bands, the music, the stuff that's moving me, the new albums that are exciting me, the old albums that are exciting me, that sort of conversation. And I felt like I was getting away from all of that. Instead, it was, as you said, about the drama, about interpersonal relationships, about stuff that was removed from just talking about the music that I loved so much. And when I realized that I was spending more time doing that and way less time doing any of the stuff that excited me, coding the website itself, writing articles, writing about bands, discovering new music, even listening to music. Like I went through a period where I I was still listening to a lot of music comparatively to like probably most people, but I was
mhm.
less music for myself. Like I wasn't spending as much time with band. And it really wasn't until a few years back when that new Turnstile album came out that just like re-sparked something inside of me that I was like, holy shit, this is it. This is like what originally got me into music was this feeling. I started listening to a whole bunch of music again. You can actually like go look at like my tracking of my music listening and where it re-spikes again during that whole album cycle because it like
Sick.
I got back into it. And that was what I was missing. And I knew that I was missing that. And that was what led to wanting to pull back a lot, start chorus, make it more about not about me hit certain numbers to make certain amount of revenue, to make certain amount of money, blah, 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 all the businessy stuff that had come to what Absolute Punk was. I needed it to be less. I needed it to be so much smaller so I could figure out who I am into my late mid 30s. And then not only that, but just what is my relationship to music? What is my relationship to the music scene and how I want to actually like engage with that in a healthy manner, if that makes any sort of sense.
No, I absolutely get that. I obviously levels to this. I do a lot of social media music stuff as well. We have a website, a Discord that's kind of similar vein stuff in the way that like very much I'm always like like this feeling of that the community, like we have a Discord. It's like we want to recreate this like where people can be, and it's like I at some point like I mean even just days for it's like, oh, becomes at some is it everything's a, especially with music, you start getting this weird relationship with it sometimes where everything's sour and you're thinking about in regards to like business stuff almost, as opposed to you like that kid who loved MXPX and Blink-182 so much that he had to start a freaking website. Like that kid is gone and you're like, what happened to that Jason?
No, exactly. That's a great way to describe it, and it is very true. And I don't know, it sounds like midlife crisis, quarter life crisis, whatever, but it's true. Like, I think that we all do go through phases like that, and I do think that everyone can relate to that on some level of understanding what it's like to get older, realize you're getting older, realize I only have X amount of years on this planet. What am I doing? What am I?
Where my yeah, right. I've spent the last 15 years on looking at the same gray page with the same little heart in the corner, like
Exactly. And that's what you start thinking about. You start thinking like this is what I know, this is all I've done. What else could there be? What other things excite me? When I started realizing I was waking up every day doing the same thing. Again, doom scrolling way too much, spending too much time just being upset about things. And yeah, so that's where I'm basically at now.
plus there's like an anxiousness that with news stuff like that, like things like it's like you got to be on top of it. Like, you want to be first, and with the staff as well, you're managing a group of people, and there's relationships, and it's just like
Yeah, and then what I wanted instead was, instead of the idea of like, I mean, AbsolutePunk, we were updating all the time. Like, it was 80 posts a day sometimes, plus that and plus more, of needing to have a feed that was constantly going. So it like equivalent to something like Twitter, something like Facebook.
I loved the feed. The feed is what honestly I'll still go on Chorus FM, but like all the time, like because I have like I very rarely use a browser, and there's Reflect, like where it's like I'm a wrestling fan, so I naturally go to Reddit/r/squared circle and Chorus FM. These are two, like, go look at your goddamn analytics. You'll see my IP address clicking, like, because it's just like, oh, because I love the news. Like, that's how I got all my, like, especially like right as Twitter was starting. I'm thinking late 2000s, like early 2010s, like that is how I'd get my new music information, things like that. Was just,
And
you
that
were the source.
what AbsolutePunk was like, that version of a feed of like, how can we have something every 15 minutes going up, something new, something that the day would be about. And what I want to more about is somebody that's, I don't know, it's sprung in a little bit older, but that want to check website once a day. You can check the website middle of the day. You're going to get 18-ish stories on like a big day, but it's going to be updated once. You can kind of just follow and see, hey, what happened today? Like, what have all the bands that we've been listening to for years do in the past 24 hours? It doesn't have to be constantly updated as much, but it's more of a, let me check in the middle of my day, my lunch period, middle of my day. Let's see what's going on. If you want to participate in the forums, the community is very vibrant. It has way more up to the minute news. So you could go follow one of the band threads and you can see exactly what.
Well, I'll be going back like 30. I'll be on the, like, some of those band, the music and the specific band. I'll be going, it's like number 50, 158. I'll be going back to like, go back 10. I got to go back one at a time. Like, okay, these are still all within the last week when this thing leaked or something like that. And it's just like, they're very vibrant, but like, that's interesting. You've been able to, like, because I'm sure at some point too, when you're releasing that news on that constant basis, you're putting out that much news. At some point, it's not news anymore. You're really reaching. There's some stuff that doesn't need, like, was this really this and that? Whereas with now, it's like, you can really hone in. These are the things I like. These are the things I want to
definitely more
platform.
That's the whole idea. Is like, it's more curated. It's more around, my personal taste, the things that I'm most interested in, the bands I'm interested in, coincide pretty nicely with a bunch of the bands that I've been following for years, getting back together, releasing new stuff. Those kind of bands still being in the news and being able to post that. But instead of it needing to be 100 things in the day or some 50 things in the day, 25, something like that. But it actually lets me be way more judicious about what I want to highlight, what I want to talk about, things that are interesting to me, the news stories that do bubble up that I find this is the worthy of your time. And I like the idea of somebody being able to visit that website once or twice during the day, scroll through, see things and be like, oh, cool. I feel like I'm up to date on this kind of music for that day. Again, if they go into the forums, they can have more of the like Absolute Punk like experience where they're getting news all the time. When things break, that shows up in the forums. And there's a lot of conversation around it. Still exists, but the forum and the website are more separate than they were in the past. And it's more about having that personal place to write about music, and then also still having a community and a vibrant community of people to talk to, of people to talk about music, and specifically these kind of bands in a way that's more respectful. I know we grew up online where people were making fun of emo. It's a little bit cooler now. It's getting
it's having a moment. I kind of personally, that's one of the reasons I started getting involved. I was seeing all these elder emo videos, and I was like, you weren't getting meatball subs thrown at you in the cafeteria like I was. You weren't getting called slurs because of your pants. Like I know you all weren't there.
I know, that's how I felt too. It's like seeing all of that. It's kind of seeing a little bit of a revival now, but I've always wanted to give it that that kind of respect. I don't know. I like Blink-182. I liked MXPX. They were never the coolest bands in the world when I started doing it, but I liked them and I wanted to talk about them. And the other blogs out there, more, prestigious music blogs, which them and then do a reevaluation of the albums 15 years later, and all of a sudden they liked them again. It's like, hey, wait a minute here. I remember
all the pitchforks and all these things where they were the cooler, trendier thing. Yeah, a little less in our, music mends broken hearts. There's a lot more vulnerability, heart on sleeve with ours, and those little cooler world. Yeah, it was a little more. Yeah, this is lame. And now look at how they treat My Chemical Romance.
I know. Now
look at them.
Everybody's coming back around. I'm enjoying seeing the critical reevaluations. It's like, you know what? I was right all along. So fuck you.
Yeah, I was onto something here. Okay. Let me take it back to pre-AbsolutePunk, Oregon, right? Originally.
Yep.
Oregon. Okay. Interesting enough, I lived in Depot Bay for a while, and my first two pop punk bands I got Enema of the State when I was 9 years old. I saw What's My Age Again on TRL. Don't know what that says about me, but it changed my life. And then when I was in the 8th grade, a kid with an older brother gave me MXPX, and those were mine as well. What was your origin story with these bands?
So grew up, similar story in Portland, just a suburb outside of Portland, Oregon. So a tiny little suburb, middle class, that kind of thing. And never really had like exposure to music of my own growing up. Music was around the house. So there's a lot of like the Beatles, Elvis Presley, stuff that my parents listened to, but it was always on. So I liked music at a young age, listened to music that was not mine.
Not you. I was literally going to say, like, that's you liked music, but you didn't have your music.
Exactly. Then middle school hits, everyone's kind of figuring out what's going on. I listened to mostly what was around. Like friends would listen to grunge music. It was like kind of late era, like Nirvana, hair metal bands, Pantera, Metallica, that sort of stuff was what like my friend was kind of listening to in middle school. Liked it enough, would listen to it, but again, not like mine. Never something that like I connected to really. Nothing that I really seeked out to own. Didn't have a lot of CDs or tapes of myself. Then around that time, a friend that I met through a mutual group left a bunch of CDs over at my house, just like left a bunch of CDs and like one of those giant CD binders or something, and just left it over my house after like we were hanging out for an evening. And I was like, I'm just gonna like scroll through these and see what's here. Start looking through the binder, and I come across the famous Dude Ranch 6-shooter CD. So you see the like thing. I'm like, what's this Blink-182 band? I'm like, whatever. I'm gonna listen to this. Toss it in. Hear Pathetic for the first time, and went, holy shit! Like this is unlike anything that I've heard. And to me, it was the youthful like explanation of, again, like middle class suburbia, but like that kind of rebellion against that world, and bratty, talking about girls, talking about skating, like that whole environment and that whole thing just spoke to me. And it was like, oh, these are like people that know what I'm going through, understand me, understand my life here as a little 12-year-old or whatever I was at the time. So discovered Blink, and that just blew my mind. That was like the band that like set off the obsession of music and listening to music. And like I've talked about this before, written about it at length, of like, it wasn't just that I like liked Blink-182. This is not planned, by the way. I just happened to be wearing the Blink sweater this week.
Sick.
Because I still like Blink. So they became not only a band that like I wanted to listen to music. It's like I wanted to be that band. Like I wanted to beat them. Like I was like the jokes that me and my friends made, the things that we did, it was like all about that kind of experience and like goofing around and just having fun and being dorks. So that was Blink. And then soon after, it was that feeling of like, I want more of this. Like, I need more of this sound. What is this? And that went into like going through all the liner notes and reading like the stuff that people would write about there. And like, it was like, oh, they'd say thank you to like certain.
They mentioned other bands in here. Yeah. You're really.
Who's this homegrown band? I'm going to go check them out. What's this Less and Jake band?
You're gateway drugging.
Like a list of bands. And I would go to a local CD store. And there was back in the day where you could like scan a CD and then listen to like a few seconds of like the song song on the headphones, and I'd start picking out bands and be like, okay, and I'd save up my lunch money that my parents would give me, and I'd put a little bit away, and I'd save up enough for a CD, and then go buy a CD. And so soon after that, I found MXPX, and that was like the second one that really spoke to me and really like gave me that same energy, that same feeling, that same like skate punk sort of vibe. And I just was obsessed with them as well. And so it just became this obsession with Blink, MXPX, and then every band I could find. And then what I loved doing is finding a band that I really got into. I remember the first time I heard Newfound Glory, and I was like, oh my God, this band is amazing. Like, this is like kind of like Blink and MXPX, but a little bit more poppy, doing something different. And I wanted to tell all my friends about it. So it was like immediately, like at school, like, you guys have to check out this band. This band's awesome. Like, this is so cool. And then they'd start listening to it and they'd start talking about it. And I can slowly watch that like spread. And that's kind of, I think, what like sunk that original idea into my head of like what Absolute Punk even became, was wanting to talk about these bands, wanting to say, you like Blink-182, you're probably also going to like Phoenix TX. You like Newfound Glory, there's this new band out called Fall Out Boy that's pretty good. You should check these guys out. It just became like that version of wanting to like explore and expand the music that I was discovering and enjoying, and wanting and thinking that more people would be interested in that, and more people would be wanting to discover that stuff as well. So that's kind of the origin story of everything. Began with Blink, expanded into MXPX, and then so much became just an obsession of wanting to discover every single band that I could. And so many bands around that time were forming, and then the internet was new, so you had the ability to discover them a little bit more. He'd go to shows. I remember first show I ever went to was MXPX, and the band opening up for him was the Ataris. And I remember watching the Ataris and just being like, who are these guys? This is
pretty cool. Yeah.
amazing. Like, what is going on? I couldn't even find their CD in
You
store.
couldn't even Google San Dimas or nothing
Yeah,
like
I'm pretty
that.
sure
Yeah.
I had to like do a mail away thing, or my mom mailed away to get me the CD, or it was some weird thing like that, because you couldn't even find it. Everyone with Spotify is so spoiled these days.
I
But
know these kids. Yeah, I was gonna say you'd have the little brochure thing, the 2-sided thing with the mailer, and you'd have to fill it out. Yeah,
go in, and then if you just happened to get one that wasn't any good, it was like the worst thing in the world if you spent $15 on a CD. And
yeah, you're really taking a chance on it. Yeah, everything you just. I'm 6 years younger than you, and everything you just might be the most relatable thing I've ever heard on this show. Every single detail of just like, I found this band and I thought it was my friends. I say all the time with Blink. My thing, I think with bands and everything, there's like psychological stuff at play. I think one of the main appeals of Blink, beyond the obvious great songs, is just like that relatability of like Blink-182 feels like you and your friends. Like it's like when you watch a show like a Workaholics or a Seinfeld or It's Always Sunny, you're like, oh, I'm him, you're that, it's like that's you, and it feels like it could be you, and you could know these guys, and you're the magic of Blink to me is like the friendship, not the.
No, I completely agree. I think that is a giant part of that. And I think that was also what really helped spark that first wave of pop punk, emo, whatever we want to call it, bands, was, picking up a CD and seeing kids on the cover. Like, I mean, I remember Drive Through Records came out and started releasing a whole bunch of bands. And it was like The Starting Line, Census Fail, Alistair, Homegrown, all of those bands. And it was like seeing the first time you see Kenny Vasily like on the album cover, and you're like, that dude
Child Kenny, yeah.
He's like puka shells, blonde hair. He looks like he could be like a peer. You see today and young Chris Conley, and the same thing of like, these are people that that are my age doing this, and what they're talking about is super relatable. But also when they're up on stage and I'm in the crowd yelling back at them, there's that camaraderie back and forth of like, we're all part of the same thing. And it's not like my parents listening to Neil Diamond. No. Somebody else up there that you just don't have.
It's almost like Nirvana's whole thing. I mean, grunge, a lot of that is like, I mean, even with punk rock at its core, it's like this kill rock star thing. Like, it's like death to the hair metal. These guys are rock gods, this or that. There's this, all of a sudden, these rock stars are, which is ironic considering like MCR is the biggest band in our sphere and how they are presented. But at their core, they're one of these bands too. But like with pop punk, punk rock, this whole world, like there's just this no barricade almost metaphorically between you and the bands.
And that was what I think drew me to it. I think it obviously drew a lot of other people to it. Again, first show I was ever at, MXPX, I remember, small venue down in Portland, wall to wall packed, just sweaty, just everyone just crammed into this room, loud music. And I remember when the music started, everyone started swaying. It's the first mosh pit I've ever been in. And I remember watching like people fall down, and then people like pick them up and like immediately like help them. And
you're starting to learn. Yeah.
Of like, oh, everyone's here for each other. They're not judging me because
Yeah.
of how I look. They're not judging me because of anything about me. And this is coming right
No.
out of middle school, which is one of the most traumatic experiences of
Yeah.
most people's lives, of dealing with what middle school is and like how
Of
mean
course.
everybody is to each
It's the
other.
worst.
It's
And at this time, and for the most part, you don't look like the prototypical punk guy at any point. You know, like, no.
No, I mean, at that point, was early high school or something. I think probably wearing like khaki shorts and like a button up like polo shirt or something like that.
They didn't care in the pit. Yeah.
But nobody cared. And that was the part that I found so interesting. You know, it had the same sort of relatability with a girl to my left with like a piercing and spiked hair and like as punk as you can look, but has the exact same feeling about this music that I do. And we can relate on that level, even if we're not like the same aesthetically, and like, but never felt judged. You know, later on in the punk scene as it got bigger and stuff, maybe more judged.
Yeah.
But at that period, I felt very like connected and part of something that just felt so natural and unique and interesting. Like it just felt like it was something that was brewing there that I could experience with my friends, this core group of people, meet new people, but have that connection back and forth with the live music. And to experience something like that was just very cool, especially and very like obviously transformative at that age.
Still thinking of like that kid, young Jason, who likes, is just at heart a fan kid. What was the first moment as Absolute Punk is growing where you're kind of like, holy shit, this is my life?
Yeah, I mean, it was little moments along the way. Like that's a good question. Like it's one of those things where it just lots of little things led to the big thing. Like it was just so many little moments. Me realizing more people are reading my silly little Blink-182 MXPX blog and just being like, oh, there's a lot of people here. Like I'm meeting people. I'm talking with new people on AIM about like messages from people that like wanted to talk about bands. And so that's how I started learning about many, many bands. I think first time I heard about Slick Shoes was somebody messaged me on AIM and was just like, hey, have you checked out this band, Slick Shoes? And I've like, never heard
I
of
think you'd like this.
yeah. And it was like, awesome. So it was like this very early like forum and DMs and stuff like that. So started with all of that. And also I start realizing like there's an audience here. There's people that are reading what I'm putting on the internet. This is insane. I just thought it was like fun to put some stuff on the internet. I like technology. I like learning about how to make websites. Again, early high school, doing that. So that's that first step of like, okay, people are like kind of paying attention to this. Then it slowly moves into like the more that I'm writing about bands and yet more like younger bands, they're reaching out to me. So like all of a sudden, like people that are like in bands and they're bands that are really good and I like, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, so and so is just email, kind of cool. Or here's a band I've never heard of before, but I get a demo in the mail being like, hey, check out my band. That's a big Fall Out Boy. And it's like little things like that where I would slowly start building relationships with different bands and different musicians, different labels. And then realizing that like it was getting really popular. And it kind of coincided with, music scene getting popular, my website getting popular, perfect storm. All of a sudden the website's extremely popular. And then that's when it becomes a little bit undeniable when like the numbers are so big that you're like, okay, like I can see that like 1 million people viewed this website today. That is no longer it's just me having like a little bit of fun here. It's like that is now like quantifiably large. So that's the stuff where it starts then realizing like, okay, this is big. And then you start talking to bigger artists and then you have the labels and the artists reaching out to you to pitch you. And it's no longer me sending an email to Fat Records being like, hey, I run a blog. Let me like talk to NoFX or whatever. And then it's the other way around. All of a sudden the labels are pitching you and they're like, we've got a new band you think you should check out. And you've got Fueled by Ramen sending you demos to say, hey, we're thinking about signing this band. What do you think of this band? And like things like that. And that's when it just all of a sudden it's like, if you don't like pull back from it, it just becomes what happens versus like actually realizing the moment and actually seeing like all of it. And so like you look years later back, you're like, oh, okay. So like it was a series of steps that happened along the way, but at the moment and in the time, it's just happening. You're just experiencing it and just going along with it.
How did you that's the same thing, just very like, even I was at a show a couple weeks ago for some, I'm familiar, Trash, Sports, Kerosene Heights, Thoughts on Bowling, these younger emo bands. And the Thoughts on Bowling kids have been on our show. and like they ran up to me and it's like, oh, when would like, and I'm like, you know, and we've had all the bands on that bill except for Trash on our show, and you know, it's a 4-band bill, and collectively, including like people in the audience, there's like 6 bands here we've interviewed on the show and featured, and it's like kind of like, oh, like, wow, like prettiest girl at the party all of a sudden kind of feeling. Like, how did you kind of balance that, you know, especially too with like working with, once you factor in labels and management and publicists and things like that, how did you kind of manage that, staying unbiased, you know, Fox News adjacent, like fair and balanced kind of source for things, as opposed to like, for lack of better terms, like just shilling for your buddies, or worst case, like the labels and stuff as they like try to feed you. So how do you balance that? Do you balance that? Like, what is the approach to that?
For me, it's just always been, and I don't know, this is what I've been saying for 20 years or something at this point. So I've never been somebody that, I'll put it a different way. My honesty about how I feel about music, I feel, is like always been the thing that is like my guiding force. Like I'm very honest if I like something, and I'm very honest sometimes to a detriment if I don't like something. I used to be way more vocal about things I didn't like. I used to be way more vocal about being like, this sucks. Or
I liked that. I liked that. That was yeah. I kind of
younger me was more willing to just throw a band completely under the bus and just be like, I don't like this. This is not for me.
And then you start, you really like, especially like you had some cash, you know. It's like oh shit, like I might be taking literal food off this band's table if I shit on him too much.
Like you feel bad, and then like years later it's a band, and then their lead singer ends up being a total piece of shit and shows himself online, and you're like, oh, okay, well actually I was right about those guys. So you don't feel so bad about some of them, but then there's others where you're like, yeah, I was probably meaner than I should be. So anyway, like I always wanted to just be honest about the music. So that was the guiding principle of like, I'm not going to, like, just if a label, like if I don't like an album, I'm not going to review it. If I'm not interested in it, I'm just not interested. And so letting that honesty be what guides me, and letting it just be like, I'm going to be 100% truthful about how I feel about the music. If I end up having like a relationship with a band, or I know a band, or I have some sort of friendly back and forth with them, that doesn't influence whether or not like what I'm going to say about the music.
Yeah.
It's just there. And I think people have, you know, at this point, I've spent so much time writing online that I think that I've built up that sort of trust with people, that they know, like, I'm not writing about a band because I'm friends with them. I'm writing about a band because I like them. So if I review the new Yellow Card album, I have a relationship with that band going way back. I've known them for a very long time, and I would consider multiple members of that band like casual, like acquaintance friends. Like, you know, we text back and forth about different things. I've known them for that long of a time that relationship exists. But if I write about the music, it's coming from how I feel about the music. And if that's influenced by having a relationship with them, that's what I want to get across in what I write about the music, is that how I feel about that is because of the relationship I have with them. You know, I can't write about Blink-182 and not talk about the fact that they're the band that got me into music when I was 15. I'm now again 42.
Of course.
30 plus years with a band. That's part of that relationship that plays into how I feel.
That being said, this is how I feel about One More Time. Keep this in mind. Yeah.
I feel about it. This is what it means to me. And this is how I connect to it. So that is kind of what my principles have always been, of like, okay, I'm going to write about music and be honest about how I feel. I'm going to be honest about what I'm putting out there. And I've done it for so long, and I think my track record speaks for itself, that that is what comes across. That authenticity has been at the core of what I've said. And I've never in my life been like, I like this band that I don't listen to and I don't like, because if I end up doing that, like that comes across, or that's going to be so very apparent that I am not something. If I can't not be who I am, and that like gets worn on my sleeve for good and for worse, but that gets worn out there. Like I could not talk about a band that I am not actually passionate about, because it would be so very obvious that I am not actually into that music or not into that band. So
yes.
I think those are the kind of things that I've just let be part of me. And then on the other side of it is, it took me a long time to like kind of find what my voice is when it comes to writing about music, and when it comes to album reviews, when it comes to what I want to say in the quote criticism world about music. And I tried a variety of different things over the years of being, track by track reviews, being more critical, being more pitchforky versions of that. But what I ended up finding is what I'm most interested in doing is writing about how music impacts me, writing about how music like hits me at a core level and why this music has stuck with me for so long and why so many of us are drawn to this kind of music, this brands, these bands, and this specific style. Like, why does that connect with us? And that's what's interesting to me and like what I want to explore. And so when I'm talking about this music, bands, and stuff like that these days, it's more from like that lens of let me review the new Blink-182 or the Yellow Card album, or talk about a new band that fewer people know about. But like when I'm talking about those bands, it's through that lens, and that's what I'm trying to get across. And that leads me to not have that kind of negative reaction or biases coming in, because it's from a place of let me just explain who I am and how I feel about something, as opposed to trying to be the arbitrator of this is good or not good. Like, I never want to be the person saying, I have decided that my opinion is the only thing that is good, and therefore this is good art, blah, 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 blah. Go into that sort of discussion until we're blue in the face. But it's more of, I like this. Let me explain why I like this and why this connects with me and why this means something to me. It might not mean anything to you. That's cool. You don't have to like Yellow Card.
You don't have to like it, but I like this.
It doesn't really matter to me. I'm past all of that. I'm at the spot of like, it's important to me that I explain why I do and why it's connected with me and why it's important to me and why at this age and time, when I listen to it, it makes me feel this way. And I think that they deserve their kudos, their flowers, their, the understanding of like where they're placed in the music scene that other people might not give them. Let me be the person to say, this is why this is important to me. And you can just look at the numbers. You can look at like how many people have related to that as well over the years and say, it obviously means something to other people too. Like, I'm not the only one. If I was the only one throwing that up online, I'm also okay with that at this point in time.
Yeah.
But it's very obvious that like our music scene, this music scene has a longevity and a lasting impact on millions of people. And these millions of people, that's just like a fact. And that's exciting to me to be able to connect and talk into that.
That's interesting you say that. A lot of that just kind of ties in with like, in general, just my thoughts as well, where you talk about like, building trust and people trusting you. Same thing where it's like, you need to show people, like, I remember when I first had like a few labels reach out and it was like, oh, like promote these artists, we pay you, and like, this and that. It was like, oh, cool. Like, I'm going to get paid. Like, that felt really validating for a second. And then it's like, well, that $150, if I promote something I don't like, I'm going to sell, like, I can only do so many of, like, I can only, I start slipping in enough of those, people are going to realize I'm a fucking, like a plant or something, you know?
And then there's also the finding the line. And I mean, that was the hard part with Punk because, obviously I ended up selling that website for a period of time, and the website that bought it, they need to make money. And it was a business and became a business. And I fought very hard with like the business side of people about that, because of the time, mid early 2000s or whatever, was native advertising was such a like big thing that everyone threw around. And it was the idea of like, how can content be an ad as well? And I'm sitting in the back being like, look, I can see how much money you're making off banner ads. Like, I'm fine selling.
I'm fine here.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars on that. Just sell banner ads. Leave me alone. Like, we don't have native advertising.
You don't need to do sponsored content. You're getting enough clicks and shit. Yeah.
So like, just make the money here. Be fine with the, again, thousands of dollars you guys are making. Like, this is a good business. Let the business be the business and let the content be the content. Let's not mix them. And that's always been kind of like my vision of like where I want to do things. I'm not opposed to making that. I'm opposed to making it look like the content is too sponsored. I listen to podcasts. I watch video stuff. When there's a break and it's very clear this is sponsored content, I'm okay with that. I don't like when it feels like the person's pitching me on something, working it in a way that feels fake, and they're trying to sell me on something that doesn't feel genuine to them. When people are telling me, I drink athletic greens, it's like, you don't drink.
No, you don't. None of them are using these VPNs they talk about, the blue chews.
Like, don't make me feel like that's what you're doing. And if I can sniff it out, I want to believe that any audience that I potentially has is also intelligent and can sniff out the same sort of thing. So
we have one sponsor on this show, Jason, and it's Protégé, the face cream, the all-in-one face cream made by our friend Gabe Saporta, and it's a great product, and I do actually use it, okay? So the people know, yeah. But, we love, I'm trying to look younger. I'm trying to get my beauty back. Yeah, Jason, I gotta, yeah. I'm trying to look like fucking Gabe Saporta, the most handsome guy in the scene, you know? Like, Gabe tells me to put something on my face, I'm gonna be like, yeah, okay, I will start. Yeah, brother, I will do whatever you say.
Gabe's amazing. I do think that Midtown and Gabe's an interview with Gabe is probably the first time that my website like went viral for the very first time, because
that's cool.
Interview with Midtown right after they left Drive Through Records and signed to MCA Records, and I met him at some show and just interviewing him out on the street.
God,
with a crappy
cool.
little Mike and my college roommate that drove me there, and we were sitting there, and they blew up Drive Through. Like, they just destroyed them. They
Sick.
Went off.
That's great.
These are the worst people, blah blah blah. And I was sitting there again. I mean, I wasn't even 21. I would have been like 19 or something like that. And I'm just sitting there just like, what is happening? Like, I have like no idea what to do with any of this. Like, the website's very, very small at this time. I Love Midtown, Living Will is the Best Revenge. It hasn't even come out yet. They're just on their first album. I remember posting that interview, and then it got linked on like Punk News, punkrocks.net, like a bunch of these other websites. Drive Through Records was so mad at me. I remember.
Oh, Richard's gone. Yeah.
And Stephanie, both of them called me. Super mad. You got to take this down. And it was like my first like experience of being like, okay, like, am I a journalist? What am I? Like, what
do I do? Yeah, what's my role here? Like,
I'm like this tiny little blog thing that like met a band and they talked about this, and like I had that moment of like, what am I gonna do? And I was like, you know what, fuck it. Like, again, I'm 19. I'm a little bit cocky. I'm just like, what? I'm keeping it up. Like, I'm leaving it up.
Yeah.
Let's just do this.
36, I would do the same thing.
What happened? Like, let's see what goes on. And the funny part about all of that is, still have a great relationship with Midtown. Very funny. But that was like one of the moments that like put that website on the map. And throughout my then quote career in the music world or whatever, ended up still having a pretty decent relationship with Drive Through Records. Like, there's contentious times.
It worked out still.
But like, I mean, Stephanie messages me on Instagram to this day if I post about Blink or anything, and she'll be like, oh, I saw blah blah blah, I hope you're doing well, and like stuff like that. So like, there's still a relationship there that was never actually like ruined from all of that. But that is one of my favorite like very early Midtown stories.
That's Gabe first reached out to me because I made like this little TikTok video about Drive Through. It was like, point of view, you're a 2000s pop punk emo band about to sign to a label, and it's like, so let me get this straight. I walk on your back, you're gonna listen to the record, that kind of thing. And I get a DM like I've done a few videos about it, and every time it does, like bands will be like I'll get a bunch of DMs from like people from like bigger bands we know, and then bands people hadn't heard of. It's like, yo, this and that. But like, I got a DM that was like, yo, that Drive Through shit was hilarious. Give me your address. I'll send you some Protégé, Gabe. And I assumed it was like a clothing line thing. And I was like, yeah, dude, here's my address. All right. And then I went and clicked on the page because Protégé, I literally, I'm thinking it's like some like, like a clothing brand, like something I wouldn't normally wear, maybe like a hardcore looking brand, tough guy looking stuff. And I click on it and I see Gabe, and I literally message back. I'm like, oh shit, Gabe, what's up, dude? Huge Midtown fan. I have a podcast. I'd love it if you came on. And he's like, haha, super down, send me your email. I'm like, go to all my friends. I'm like, Gabe. It's just the same thing where it's like, you mentioned Gabe, like a moment with Midtown feeling like that first moment. Like, we've had some cool bit, but like Gabe Saporta being like, and getting those, I remember screenshotting like the email that was like Gabe Saporta X Emo Kids Anonymous. I was like, I am going to print that out and put that on my wall. Like, Gabe is a guy, much like I would say Pete as well, where I look at them as like, no matter what band they were in, they were going to get famous. Like no matter what, like I feel like even with Cobra, it was like a purposeful thing. Like, Midtown is this great band, shit didn't go right, okay, I'm gonna give people exactly what they want. I can see we're moving into this. I'm gonna be like, if you type in scene, you go to the Wikipedia page for scene,
Yeah.
It's a photo of Gabe Saporta, literally.
Facts. Yeah, there's been a few people over like my life and my career that like I've seen and watched and been like, that person's just a star. Like that person is going to be a star.
Who else did you throw in there?
I remember the first time I saw Hayley from Paramore. Like I remember,
Oh yeah. Oh my God.
just being like, holy shit. And then I remember, I mean, very early Panic at the Disco. I knew Panic at the Disco had something from the early demos of what was happening there, which Pete sent me, and I remember him sending me demos.
Cool.
From them being like, and like my first comment was, well, if somebody's gonna get rich off of your guys' sound, it might as well be you guys. So,
yeah. I remember being in my friend Panita's car and like whatever the fall that Fever came out. And I remember in her blue Hyundai being like on a burnt CD, burnt CDR, and like, you like this band? It sounds like Fall Out Boy, and it was. I don't even think it was I Write Sins. It was one of the other, Every Day I Thank God or something like that. And I was just like, wow, like, yeah, exactly. And it was, as we've seen, like, as time went on, like that band, same thing, like, and with Hayley Williams as well, with Paramore and Panic, like by all metrics, those bands should be behind the music VH1, what could have been bands. And they persisted solely, I would say, because of those two people.
Yeah, and there's those bands where you see somebody and you go, that person just has it, like they're going to be it. And then there's the bands along the way that that I have a personal connection to, of wanting to see succeed. And you watch a band like Format, so you see like Nate. And he did so much in the Format band that I just loved, was super obsessed with.
And I know the Format because of you, by the way. I remember like getting cool. Like one of my best buddies, I remember him telling me one of the first times we hung out, I was wearing a Format shirt, and he's like, "Oh, Format, like Dog Problems." And he's like, "Yeah, I knew what it was." Thank you for that. One of my best friends to this day.
He, goes into starts fun, and then obviously gets super successful there. Jack Antonoff with Steel Train, and then also is now the largest producer in the world, producing everybody. So it's like watching people that I didn't necessarily go, that person's going to be a star with like the same star power, but being like, there is a undeniable talent there. There is something there that is so undeniable that I feel like the world needs to hear. And then watching them actually get that sort of success on like a massive level, and to see where, I mean, Jack's gotten to do.
Did you have any dealings with young Jack Antonoff?
I mean, there's an interview. The interview might still actually be on Chorus. There's right after Fun won the Grammy that he came. He came to Absolute Punk and said, "I want to do the interview with you guys because like you guys have been there for all along." And like, going again all the way back to Drive Through and like their connection. But yeah, I've known those guys from the early Steel Train days, and that might actually still exist on there. There might be a link on Chorus to an old Absolute Punk article about like right after the Grammys, and Jack coming to one of our interviewers at the time and wanting to talk with them about like that whole experience. Haven't talked to him personally in years at this point. Like, I don't.
He's a little booked up. Yeah,
it seems a little bit popular.
yeah. Good luck getting through. Yeah, good luck getting through there.
But like, I do know, like, I mean, their publicists and everything still reach out to us when they're doing anything around Bleachers related things and stuff like that. So still on the line there. But it's that sort of thing that I think that just watching those kind of people have that sort of star power and that magnetism, and then that obviously that talent that is then translated through. Like, that hasn't happened with every band. Like some bands that I've just been like, I can't believe that they didn't blow up. But at the same time, it's happened more frequently than the average.
I'm first just on Jack Antonoff. Yeah, like greatest producer, I think, in obviously the last 15 years or so. And the fact he comes from our world is just like this. Same thing where it's like this sense of pride. Like, I don't know him, but it's like like, this is our world. This is attainable kind of thing. But in regards to, talk about these bands where their star, I'm thinking obviously of one in particular. I'm curious if that's what you're going to say, but like, is there any bands along the way that maybe you really believed in and you pushed for, and then they let you down kind of along the way?
Let me down in which way?
I mean, just in general, in anything really, and how they handled it, like how they followed things up where you thought it was a great band and then it didn't go, like you saw like them going, the trajectory for them going away, and they kind of got in their own way, or maybe shit turned sideways for you and it was a band you were ride or die for and things kind of went, one way or the other?
I mean, there's obviously there's a few different ways that it can go. Like that's why I make that joke. Like there's the version of like a band that I'm really into and I really like stylistically, and then maybe their second album doesn't sound the same or goes in a different direction.
That's one. Yeah.
Sometimes it's like, oh, okay, like they went in this direction and that's not the direction I went. There's been times where that years later I come back and I'm like, oh, actually that album was that's pretty good. I just wasn't ready. So that's one version of it. And there's obviously then the relationship with bands, the reckoning that our music scene specifically has had over the past 5, 10, 15 years or whatever with sexual harassment.
Oh shit, yeah.
The issues there. And that's a different thing because that is then even bands and musicians that I loved reconciling the love for that kind of music and the love of, and the what that impacted me with emotionally, and then what that did to other people and the letdown and the hurt that I have because that music and that band, those people hurt other people. So it's seeing that. And so it's like, and it's two very different things. And that kind of pain and that kind of hurt and that kind of like recognition with the music scene, with that darkness there, that's been one of the more difficult things that I've had to try to figure out how to even handle, like as a human, let alone somebody that's online talking about these kind of bands with people regularly.
It's funny, one, I thought you were going to say The Dangerous Summer. Which I was like, oh, that's like I met Cody did the graphic design for my old band, and I met him through AbsolutePunk because I talked some after I loved the first record because of you. It was one of my favorite records, and then Warpaint dropped, and it was like when shit was going sideways for them, and you wrote about it, and I think it was one of the ones where you're like, this is the last time I'm going to cover them, and I talked shit about them in the comments, and Cody reached out to me on Facebook, and he did a lot of good work for my band, and then he ended up like showing up on my doorstep a couple of years later, and it was this whole ordeal. He stole from my roommate. We had a physical altercation. I made him leave the valley. And actually, a few weeks ago is very weird. He reached out to our podcast on Instagram, and I was curious. I was like, does he not know it's me? Like, did he just see like it's a publication? He's like, oh, I got to get on here. Does he know it's? I was like, he messaged me, and I sent him back like, because we hadn't talked. Last time I saw him, I literally was like screaming at him. I was like, you're not allowed back in the valley. If you come back in the valley, like this, he stole from me in my room. It was when he was in drug addiction situation. We don't need to get too deep in it, but like he has shit going on. I'm like, you need to stay out of the valley. That was my last interaction with him. And he messages us, and I send him like laughing emojis back. And I'm like, if we're going to talk about the time you stole from me and my roommate, he's like, we can dive into whatever. I was like, I would actually honestly love to have you on because of like, there's so much history like here where like, you did some nice things for me. And then like you moved in like personal stuff. I was like, that a worst case scenario, that's going to be a great train wreck Jerry Springer episode. Best case scenario, human interest story, someone coming back, great thing. But yeah, you mentioned.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, like, the Dangerous Summer is an interesting one because the Dangerous Summer, they're a band that I've had a very interesting relationship, but that does lean way. I mean, there's some personal stuff there because that I would have stories about Cody that I could fill books about. But went from loved early stuff, very very good, and then went into that the Golden Record, which I did not like as much.
I didn't care for Golden Record either. Yeah,
album thing where I didn't like it, and I was just like, this is fine. I didn't really vibe with the self-titled either, but then really loved Mother Nature. Really liked one of the.
Oh yeah, Way Down is a top 3 Dangerous Summer song.
Worked for me, and so then had like another like revival with the band. Definitely helped that the person in the band that I did not have a good relationship with
is gone. Yeah.
The band, it makes it a little bit easier to listen to that. And I spent a lot of time trying to look at music mostly in a way that I divorce myself from the people that I know. So it's like if I listen to an album, again, let's use a band like Yellow Card. I'm listening to Yellow Card. I try not to think about that, listening to their new music through the
through the lens of the guy that's maybe had like a drink or something with William, Ryan Key.
It's more about like, let me have that experience with it. And I try to do that even with bands that I don't like. I want to listen to something removed. But then I'm also a human being that has biases and has the ability, like has those things and those life experiences make my experience with music what it is. So having those life experiences with somebody that, has been awful to me, like does impact
Yeah,
my ability to enjoy or not
it's
enjoy
tough.
that band. That said, I can still listen to Warpoint. I have a pretty good relationship with AJ overall. And we've had conversations in the past, him and and like, I think he's a person getting his shit together and a good.
I think AJ is an interesting. I think overall he's. I mean, I've reached out to him. I'd love to have AJ on. Same thing with you, kind of thing, where it's like, well, our common bond is this one guy being an asshole to us, but like we don't need to talk about this guy being an asshole. But like AJ seems like a guy where just like over time, like his daughter and seems to be just personal. It's like someone I'm rooting for who I think at the root of it is a quality fucking dude. And yeah, they were like, there was a moment there where the band seemed like they were kind of being dipshits. But I think about it personally, if that was me in that position, I would have been a dipshit too,
I think that's interesting to see some of the bands and the youth and stuff. And there's a part of that to be able to look back on and say, oh, everyone was young and stupid.
Yeah.
It was young and stupid and did and said things that I regret in my life. So I understand that as well. But yeah, the Danish Summer is an interesting one. But yeah.
You mentioned though bands, like obviously the Me Too and a lot of obviously there's some major ones that come to mind, and I personally I remember a few times online talking about Brand New and being like, there's this and that, and then the recent allegations came out, and the girl Ayana, she reached out to us personally, and then it immediately became like, oh, I can't talk about this band anymore. Like that, I have a like, even though she just emailed us, we have no attachment. Actually, it was like, this is a friend kind of thing. How do you, even to this day, like balance maybe the idea of platforming or things like that? Say like, like a Ronnie Radke gets a lot of guff in our scene for this and that. We don't post Ronnie Radke shit on here. He follows us on TikTok. Ronnie, if you're watching this, I'm interested in having a conversation with you. But like in general, it's like on our website, it's like I talked to like, I'm reaching out to a trans friend of mine, and like, it sounds silly, like as if she's like the Jesse, like the South Park episode where Stan's dad says the N-word and he goes to Jesse Jackson, same thing, as if she's like the voice. But I remember just asking her, like, as, one of my closest, as a closest friend who is in this world, like, how would you feel if I had this person on? And she's like, I would personally be bummed out if you did. But like, even you look at Brand, like, especially as like, I can think of other bands in our world where the allegations were maybe like, it was definitely bad behavior, but is this something we need to cancel this person forever for, this or that? Like, how do you, as a, not so much as a human, but as a person running a platform, like balance that?
I think that's been one of the more difficult things for me to work through personally, professionally, and emotionally over the last 5, 10+ years. And a big part of that is, like, as you said, the platform, because I don't want to be the permission structure for somebody to keep doing something and supporting somebody that, I don't think deserves support. And I don't want to be the reason or the excuse that somebody can point to and say, well, Jason still does X, therefore it's okay. And given the history that I have in the scene and the platform that I still do have, and the fact that people still listen to me and, read what I have to write and care a little bit about what I have to say about it, means that there is some responsibility that comes along with that. That said, I also am a human being that likes music and connects to music and connects to art, and have reconciled with the fact that I do listen to, watch, and consume art made by problematic people. I grew up on Michael Jackson. I grew up on Elvis. Grew up on that very much do have problematic history. Maybe we don't even talk about enough, but is part of like my life. I do consume music and art at times that I know was made by problematic people. That said, like, when it comes to bands, it's so personal to me that certain ones I can pull back from. So certain bands I can listen to, and what I'm thinking about is being 16 and hearing the music with my friends on like a long car drive. And I'm like, oh man, I love that album. That's so good. And I'm able to connect with it there. And then there's stuff that I hear and I can't divorce it from everything I know. And the fact that you talk about like directly hearing from somebody, that is very similar to how I feel about certain bands, Brand New being one of them, and other bands that I have heard directly from people impacted by it and heard not only their stories, but heard the aftermath. So I've had
Yeah.
conversations with people that have said, like, I'm being harassed online. The band's doing nothing. Why? Can you help me here? I've reached out to like the people that I've known. I've sent emails to band members and I know what their email addresses are. And I know that they've seen them and have done nothing to help the people that were hurt
Yeah.
that moment. That to me is where I have such a hard time, like as a human, because I see that and I go, what the fuck, man? That is the exact opposite of like where we started this
That's
conversation.
what the point of this website and the point of your literal existence is.
Literally,
Yeah, it's
like the opposite of
community.
picking people up off of the ground when I was 15 and seeing people at MXPX
Yes.
helping the person up. Like that's so far removed from that I intellectually can't get past that. And so it's very difficult for me to listen to those kind of bands and to still want to cover them at all. I wish that there was a better way online to have some of those discussions. Besides me going to therapy by myself and talking to a therapist, there is not a good way to have these kind of conversations that aren't probably going to upset somebody.
The
And-
attention span is too short for the nuance involved
And
yeah.
and I very specifically don't want to hurt people. Like I very specifically don't want to have a conversation
Yeah.
or like be talking about something. And if somebody that, was hurt by one of these bands or hurt by somebody else, they see that conversation and it like triggers something in them or hurts them again or invigorates the trauma. Like I don't want to do that.
No.
But I also do feel like there's a spot that I've never been able to work through all of my feelings about all of that because of it. It's been locked up. The way I usually think through things, I write, I talk, I think like there's a back and forth, not very sitting there and like dating on something. I want dialogue. I want to be able to like work things out. That's how I've learned the most that I have in my life about most things is through communicating in a forum with people and arguing and having back and forth and like doing that sort of thing. And with some of these bands, I feel like that still there hasn't been that catalyst. It hasn't come out. And I think that instead it just like kind of simmers under the surface. That band Brand New comes back. They play some shows. The people that know, and like there's a reason they turned off all the comments on all of their social
everything. Yeah.
reason why they had to do that. Like, so like we know, and it's sitting there and it's just like, it's festering under the surface, this like, this sore and this like darkness. And where so many of these other bands are, getting back together, releasing new music. We've got like the Starting Line releasing new music this year, Motion City Soundtrack, Yellow Card, the Format is releasing a new album next year. We've got all this stuff.
Yep.
Exciting to me, and that's so like, oh my god, like what a celebration of the music scene, what a celebration of like where we came from and everything that's happening. And that's the opposite of it. Then there's this like darkness sitting on the other side of being like, yeah, but like you guys don't get a play in here. You should not be back here in this same emo revival renaissance.
Yeah.
Actually doing any of this stuff to like earn that or earn any of our trust back or earn any of like your platform back. Like that's the part that bothers me. So,
And it's a tough spot too, where like I think a Brand New, let's say late 2024, as I'm getting very active and building a following on social media, I was very much like same thing where it's like there's like what do you expect a band? There's some people who will never be okay with this band, and they're at some point you need to find peace with it. And it's like, well, how do we know they haven't put in the work personally? I mean, people aren't posting their therapy transcripts or like their like invoices for their copays or things online or whatever the version of that. It's like like trying to find ways to rationalize it, because at the end of the day, and America in general, it's like the land of second chances and opportunity. People love a redemption tale thing like that. It's like you always want to especially when allegations are coming out there 5, 10, 15 years ago, you want to part of you, especially if you're a fan of these people, if you're not a fan, you're almost like, it's like seeing some news about Trump, like the thing about the Bubba thing. I'm like, right away, I'm like, oh, he was sucking Bill, yeah. And it's like, oh, it's not true. It's like, but I'm going to stick to the narrative because it's interesting, but like a band you like, it's like you want to rationalize this thing. It's very tough to kind of try to find this balance of like, okay, have you earned your place? Like a good friend of ours that has a podcast as well. It's kind of like she said very recently, it stuck with me, is like he hasn't earned his platform back. And I mean, I think a lot of that starts to sound like liberal political stuff to people that aren't online and things like that, but to some degree ethically it is true.
Yeah, I think that what it comes down to me in those situations is listening to the people most impacted. And when you see the people that raised their hands again when they came back and said, bad shit, this is what happened to me, here's what I would like. And they actually very specific, like lay out like what they would.
Here's what would help. Yeah.
This is what would help. This is what I wanted to see. That to me is much clearer because I see somebody said this didn't happen. This is why I can't support the band. When I talk about Brand New and in like 2019, if I get a text message from somebody saying, again, like, I'm being harassed online, the band is not saying anything. Could you talk to the band to like even just say, please don't harass me? Like, just please don't harass me as a human being.
Yeah, like please leave me. Yeah, I'm having people and Brand New is a funny one. I have a good friend, Scott's Records, who's kind of like look at as like the emo Anthony Fantano, and he said to me one time, he's like, Brand New is the Donald Trump of like our world, where just the reactions are so strong and the fans on either way, like you mentioned them at all. If you were to post a news story about Brand New on your page, you'd have, I mean, the comments on the actual post on Chorus FM are a lot less than on the Absolute Punk days. But if you were to post about Brand New, you'd get 30 people being like, pedo, this, things like that, like, oh, sympathizing with, this and that. And then you'd get the opposite, people being like, I don't care anything, this, like, I would have went in the bus too. And it's just like, I don't, personally, I was like, I don't want to be involved in any of this.
Yeah, that's how I feel. Like I don't want to be involved in the narrative. I don't want to be involved in any of it. Even me just talking about it here, there's a chance this ends up on fucking Reddit and people get pissed off at me.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Same. Yeah, I get you. Yeah,
and can end up being something. And going also back to the beginning of our conversation, and one of the reasons I wanted to step away from Absolute Punk was not wanting this narrative, not wanting to be part of any of that.
No.
But I do feel like there are times where I do have a responsibility because of, the audience that does still listen to me, does still read what I have to write, to, say how I feel about things. And when somebody directly reaches out to me and says, I am being doxxed online, I am being harassed every single day, and I know that the band could at the very least do the bare minimum to say, hey, please don't harass people online, like just the bare fucking minimum of that, and then it doesn't happen, that upsets me.
Yeah. Yeah,
where I'm like, I can't let that go. And
because also same thing where it's like, okay, the person reaching out to you, obviously, like they're saying, like, I know they've seen my emails, this and that. At some point, you're like, motherfucker, I know you've seen my emails, kind of thing. Like, I know your team has seen, like, mine are getting through to you. We've spoken many times, this and that. I can maybe buy your bullshit about this slipping through the cracks or whatever, blah, 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 blah. But like, I am asking you, peer-to-peer, person that has worked with you, person that has had your back, Yeah,
exactly. So that's where I am on all of that stuff. And that's not to say that opinion won't change in time. That's not to say that I won't like continue to evolve and understand, but that is how I have reconciled personally with some of those darker parts of the music scene. And that many times, like, it is, it's uncomfortable. I think that's good because, like, for as much joy and excitement that the music world has brought to me personally and to all of us in the music scene, there are things that are worth still shining a light on and saying, this happened, this was not okay, this is bad. And that's the only way that we are able to move forward. And in this world where it seems like so many bad people get away with everything all the time, and that there are consequences, there's no like actual repercussions and nothing matters, that it is important every once in a while to say, you know what, this does matter to some of us. Like, some of us, this is not okay. And I'm not going to just pretend like nothing matters and everyone can get away with absolutely anything that they want to. in this kind of environment. And especially when I'm then talking about like my own little place on the internet. And this is why I still have a website, is because it's my little place to share my little thoughts about whatever I want to and write about the things that I want to. And I do not have to write about things I
I
don't.
was, I was gonna say with Chorus FM too, it's evolved into a place like you're saying, where it's like this is passion project, this is more of a personal thing. You don't need to, like, yes, in the Absolute Punk days, if Absolute Punk, if you didn't Tate version this to death when you bought it back and then kill, if you kept it alive and it was alive today, you'd feel an obligation to post, oh, brand new announced a tour, this or that, whereas with now it's like it doesn't even have to be a thing where I'm burying this or that. It's just like I don't personally care to,
Yeah.
not even platform is like a modern, just I don't care to promote this or share this with you, the people who trust me.
Obviously in this world and the internet, like people that want to know will find out about it. It's not like that's being hidden. It's not like it's being
Yeah.
like I am not a gatekeeper to the information anymore. Like I don't have to make that decision. And yes, in the past there would have been not only that feeling of like we need to do this because of traffic and there's traffic
Yeah.
revenue goals, and we're owned by a large company that wanted money and needed to like have page views, and so we had goals and metrics and KPIs and all those fun things. So we had like that. And so you would like feel that sort of obligation, and to pull back from that and say, actually, like, I don't need to, like, I can do whatever the heck I want. I can write about whatever I want. I am self-sustained as a human being, and my blog is my blog, and I can just be that, is very freeing. And that is like where I finally have felt the most fun to be able to write about stuff online in years. And I've like, again, like reinvigorated inside myself, like a passion, not only for music, but for being able to write about music, talk about music. I mean, ironic talking to somebody that does video for a living. I'm not good on video. I don't want to do video. I can't do YouTube.
It's funny you say that, because I wish I was a text guy. Like I recently, like this last week, I released, like, I see XXL, I look at like things very like mainstreamy. Like I'm like, XXL has this freshman list, and the Stephen A. Smith sports things, like I'm like, I want to get these bands promoted. And I did these lists, like it was the freshman 15 and the emo all stars, like the 11 band like that blew up this year, and this and that. And it's like I'm getting all these people reaching out like, oh, for next year this public, and I'm like, I just want to be, I'm the video guy who's like, I wish I was a writer, but I'm just like this guy instead, like I'm in your face, but like, I mean, my writing is mid at best, but it's like I also think it's like a generational thing too, where like maybe like late millennials, like especially in our world, Gen X, it's like we view social media and this, like a YouTube or things like that were like dirty words at the time, like it wasn't cool. The first people to kind of grasp onto this stuff were the cringiest of the millennials kind of thing. So like in my head, it's like, even the other day, I was like, I'm like a fake journalist. I'm like, this is great. Like, that's what I really wanted to be. I got these emails, like I'm like, I'm a real writer now, this or that. So it's funny you say that, because
I felt like a fake journalist my entire life, man. At some point, you just like you fake it so long that then you just kind of realize that's what you are, and you are now the people everybody looks up to as what that thing is, and it just becomes part of you. Like, I don't know. I never wanted to be a journalist. Never wanted to be any of that. I like music. I enjoy technology, stuff online, and then just kind of bloomed into what it is. But at this point, that's what I've just kind of started embracing, is like, again, I'm old. I'm growing older every single day. And what I want to do is write about things that make me happy. Writing is still a thing that I enjoy. And there's enough people out there, I can see the number of people that still read what I write on a regular basis. I can see the number of people that are still part of our forums and communicate about this music on a regular basis. It's still exciting to some people. And as long as it's still exciting to some people, and as long as I still get a joy out of hitting publish on certain things, I'm going to keep doing it. And I'll do it as long as they don't have me.
As long as you're still having fun, kind of thing. Like as long as I'm viewing this partly as not work.
Yep, exactly. And that's the main thing, is that like, I don't ever want it to become part of something that I feel an obligation of work and like have to do it because of that. Like I have to make money to, support my family or anything like that. Like I don't ever want it to be that. I want it to be a part of the passion of being able to put things online, is to be able to share stuff without any of that. And that's where I want it to be.
I almost see it with you, like, as you're telling me this, it almost feels like, is it The Godfather? I think of Silvio Dante from The Sopranos, like, just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. Like, you seem to be out where it's like you figured life out. Like, I can talk about these things I enjoy. I don't have to play this rat race of chasing news or this or that or analytics or metrics. Like, I can passionately approach this and, like, yeah, you don't want to fall back into that fucking routine.
No, and it's nice. And like that's, I mean, again, like when started Chorus, I pulled all analytics off the website for a while. Like I literally just pulled them off the website so I wouldn't even look at them. So I didn't even
Sick.
have the ability to know what was happening there.
Mhm.
So it was just like, I just want to write about things that matter, write about things that care. I stopped chasing SEO, which is a good idea because now with all the AI stuff, SEO is basically taking every other website. So
Yeah.
not like writing on the web has been a great business for a while, but if you look at all the other websites out there that have spent so long catering to SEO and trying to like make sure that they're on the top of Google and everything, all the latest Google updates with the weird AI stuff.
I was going to say, with the way Google is now, even if you're the best of the best, you're still falling to basically page 2 once I scroll by the AI slop.
Everybody's like numbers are just demolished. Any blog about food, any blog about finance, all the stuff that they have ingested for years that put at the top as the helpful content. And the AI box basically just killed all of those blogs because all those blogs were so dependent on search and so dependent on people having to search out different things for them. Whereas Chorus and AbsolutePunk before that is a community that people like we get very little traffic through search. It's almost all direct traffic. It's people typing chorus.fm.
We know Chorus. This is a site we trust.
So we exist in our own little world. We're not the biggest website in the world. We never will be, but we exist in our little world. We become self-sustainable. It's a self-sustainable website that is a nice little side business for me on the side that makes a little bit of money that I can keep it running. I can keep it going. And I feel good about that it can exist for basically perpetuity if as long as I'm alive.
Right, yeah.
As a thing. And that's what I want it to be. And that's all I'm looking for. And there was a part and time in my life where my drive was, I want this to be ginormous. I want this to be the biggest website in the world. I care. And I spent so much time up and awake and would stay up till 4 a.m. And I very much enjoy the 9 to 5 life that I have, but also the version of the website being a thing that when I want to check in on and do stuff on it, I can.
I can go have fun with some of my friends, but I don't have thousands to millions of people hanging on my every word or waiting for, I like this thing, this hanging anxiety.
Ruined relationships, ruined friendships, it actually like had a dramatic impact on my life. And like, I'm old enough and like far enough removed from that now to like see that and spent enough time understanding that, of seeing where that obsessive part of myself was very bad and like sort of like talk part of my own personality like that brought out because I spend all the time doing it and very easily just sit there for hours and just only do like I would just spend entire days online either coding the website or doing stuff or arguing with people online and it became obsessive and like in a bad way. And as I said, like the parts of I have an addictive personality that can be drawn into some of that negativity. And it's taken a long time and like growth to remove myself from that and get back out and like see that from a mild view to say, oh, okay, now I see what was bad about that. That's not good.
Before we wrap up, I just have a couple more questions. We talked about a lot about the anxious parts and the frustrating parts and the negative things that hang on you while maintaining the website and the like. One, I want to know just in general what the worst day is on the website, but two, on top of that, I think of like there, like Twitter holidays, I call them, where like certain days happen where it's just like, you got to be on the site. Like I think of like Donald Trump getting COVID kind of thing. Certain days are just like, oh, it's blowing up on here. It's like nonstop funny memes kind of thing. What is the worst day in Absolute Punk or Chorus history? And what is the best day?
So that's a really good question. I would have to think back to see if I could come up with like the worst day. There are days that I remember that were bad, but they're bad because of events that happened that are very sad. I remember the van crash that took the Beatz' life in Beatz. Like, I remember having to post about that. I remember getting a text and being like, oh shit, this is real. And knowing that
Jesus,
like I was
yeah.
going to have to write about somebody dying, and
Oh my
they're
God.
basically a senior in college at that time. They're not
Yeah,
much
they're
older than
kids.
me.
They're literally
So
fucking kids.
so like that's a day of like, this is extremely sad. This is something that is uh bands in like our scene where something very bad has happened and like somebody's no longer going to be with us. There's been multiple moments over the course of writing where I've had to write this person is no longer, this person's died post.
Yeah, Casey, Calvert, yeah, things like that. Yeah.
There's all sorts of those, and those stick out with me because of that. On the other side, there's moments in like the absolute punk life that I remember so extremely at the time stressful. I mean, I remember when we had Paramore on to chat with the website and took down the website.
The website went down. Yeah.
I remember just being like, at the time, that's very stressful when my entire like thing is the website needs to be up.
What year was that? 2009, 10, 11, around there?
And that to me, funny moment in hindsight of being like, that's really funny, kind of fun, also extremely stressful and bad on my side. From a like positive point of view, though, like the most fun that I've had in a very long time with online was when Tom got back and Blink. Like when Tom got back together, Blink, and they played Coachella for the first time. That was live,
Oh yeah.
and everybody was like in the Blink thread at the same time, watching this live and experiencing that live on video with a bunch of friends in that forum. I have some friends in real life also texting me at the same time, and everybody just having like this feel good camaraderie moment. That was like one of those things where I'm like, yeah, this is why I did this. This is why this community exists. This is why I want to talk about music with people, because everyone was just like, I can't believe this is happening. They actually sound pretty good, which
yeah, they did. Are you talking about the first weekend, right, where they played the tent? Yeah, that surprise one. I remember watching that as a kid who's from San Diego. At one point, owned the Tom DeLonge signature guitar. I wore the Padres hat. This and that. I remember just like looking at it and realizing I'm like, every single movement, like not talking about like as a kid playing guitar, but just like my entire personality, my entire being, I'm like, I have ripped off my entire life from fucking Thomas DeLonge here. Like down to the way he's moving, down to like the hair, like this is like longer, like everything is just, I'm just been biting Tom DeLonge accidentally forever.
Yep. Nope. I feel that. So that was one of those fun recent moments. And I think that it's that sort of stuff when the community can come together and have those fun, jokey, jovial moments again, those are the good days. Those are the things that really excite me. Even like little bands getting back together and things happening. Again, the Starting Line released a new album this year.
It was great too. One of the great, you talk a lot about like nostalgia acts and these older bands from our era releasing these records. The Starting Line are one of those ones that it's like, oh, this sounds like a great record from grown men in their late 30s, early 40s, or whatever they are. Like this is good.
Exactly. Being able to experience that with a like-minded group of people and not having to be on Twitter or Reddit or anything like that, and actually just being with a group of people that at this point, many of them I've known for many, many years. Like I recognize the same screen names for years. They have hundreds posts on the website. Like there's a community there of people that know each other and are experiencing that. And that to me, those are the moments where I'm like, yeah, this is worth it. This is good. And there's been many times over the years where I've had the opposite, where I've been like, this sucks. Like that people are being mean. I don't know if I want to do this. People are being mean to me. And I've had that sort of feeling, and being able to connect over to music and actually have positive feelings associated with it. That's the exact opposite. And that's what reminds me of why I still want to do this. So those
when you mention like certain, like, oh, they're being mean, this and that, is it do you ever notice it's certain genres where the fans are meaner or nicer, or is it more of band to band case, or is it really just kind of random?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I could necessarily tie it to certain genres or certain bands or certain things like that. I mean, there are definitely bands whose fans have been more historically caustic. I mean, Ronnie Radke and his followers
Yeah.
do not like me and would
Yeah, I try to avoid the Ronald Rathke stuff as much, to the point that I say his name purposely wrong so it doesn't pop up in any algorithms grabbing my words. Yeah.
right way to go. Just yeah. So I mean, but so I can't like really think it. But I also think that at this point, most of that's been filtered out, right? Like if you're coming to Chorus.fm, you know about the music I like, you know about the music most of the people on that website are talking about, and if you're coming there to like argue about, I don't know, we're not covering death metal. You're like, there's maybe some threads about it, but you're not seeking it out in that same way. Absolute Punk was so big and it covered such a wide breadth of things. It was very easy for like fans of screamo or like some version of that kind of music to be there at the same time as somebody that likes country music or hip hop or whatever. And so there was more of a chance for there to be caustic interact. Whereas at this point, like that doesn't really exist in the same way. So I don't think that there's the same sort of thing, because it's like, I don't know, if you're showing up on Absolute Punk or Chorus or whatever, and now that I'm posting about Blink-182, like that's on you at this point.
Yeah, that's on you, brother.
Like,
quick aside on that really quickly, because it's the same thing I've noticed. I have this website and this, punk, and people like, there's other people in our group that, they're more interested in this genre that's a lot different than the world I'm in, and I think back to certain writers and contributors in Absolute Punk. Ryan Berenger was one of my favorites, things like that. Like, as you're adding people in, how was it kind of that dynamic of like, oh, we're reaching in this world where like, I don't personally fuck with this maybe, but like, is it still on brand with Absolute Punk?
that was difficult. And again, like I was in my early 20s and probably did it wrong. I don't know. Like I should not have been managing people in my early 20s. Like that is a thing that
I'm in my mid to late 30s, and I don't think I have kids. I don't think I should be managing or parenting any of these people. I'm the one that needs an adult.
I mean, now I'm 42 and in my real day-to-day job, I manage people and I think I'm much better at it, but I had to learn to be that kind of manager. Like I had to learn how to actually do something like that. And I had to have mentors and people that did it better than me show me, and that like did not happen until like my late 30s of actually like meeting people that were like in the business world and understood like what that looks like, what like something like that looks like. So early Absolute Punk was basically like, I like how this kid writes. Like, this is fun. This person wants to write. They want to do this.
The same thing where it's like, they're willing to contribute to my website. Like, I can only write so much. Sure, fucking throw it up. Yeah.
We'll try and let's see what happens. And I think that I was more precious about it early on, where I was like, well, I only want like certain things. And if this person's going to write about a band and they're going to trash this band, but I really like them, that kind of sucks. Like, why am I letting somebody on my website trash a band I really like?
Yeah.
And so there was some back and forth of like trying to understand what that would feel like. And then, I don't know how I really handled it. Probably not great. But so there was that sort of thing, but also just the version of, we need content. We want people to be writing. We want the interactions. We want people to have discussions about these things. So you would just let it happen. And just mostly things just happening by chance versus any sort of real plan or any like sort of thing about it. It just happened to be what happened and it just went. And so people would start writing for the website and they just start writing for the website. Whereas now it's much more curated. There's only a handful of people that write on the website. People wanted to write for the website, and they every once in a while somebody will submit something to me and say like, hey, I'd love to write for you. And most of the time it's like, okay, like we'll have a discussion. And a lot of it comes down to is like, you're probably not going to get the giant reach that you maybe think that you want when you work from this, which is a much more niche, small thing. But if you have something that you want to get out, let's talk about it. And there's a good chance that this is the right audience for a certain thing. So like we take example, like the last 35 weeks, Craig Manning has written a piece on the website about the 35 songs that have meant to him like the most in his life. So he's gone through something
well done. Every single one of them I stop. Yeah.
Fantastic. And it's resonated really, really well. There's like, I don't know, 10 comments or so on each one, but I can see the actual metrics behind the scenes and see how many people are viewing it. It's in the tens of thousands, if not some of them are in the 20 and 25,000 different people that have read that article every single week. And to me, like that's the part that's still exciting, of being like, okay, that has resonated enough with people that literally tens of thousands of people have come to read his essays about his life, about different music. And that
it goes beyond like analytics. It's not just analytical bullshit where 25,000 people clicked on this. Well, I've had 1 million people click on like this. It's like these 25,000 people clicked because it actually resonates with them. one, they're coming back on a business end, but two, on like an emotional end, it's like this is making that impact that like 25 years ago, 21 years or 24 years ago was still the intent when you originally made this site.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the sort of connection that I'm most excited about seeing, and the kind of things that excite me. I would much rather at this point know that really good content's being put out and 25,000 people are resonating with it versus
Yeah.
needing something to go viral and needing content.
So 1 million people click on it, but none of them give a shit, actually.
And none of that at this point in my life matters to me. I don't want to be that person, and I don't want that kind of attention.
Yeah. It does nothing for you. You're good. You're good. You're good. I don't need this validation anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
What is your, opinions on the state of the scene today? Obviously, we're seeing like a major emo pop punk resurgence this decade in general, but like compared to maybe the 2010s, which I consider a bit of a drop off, as a forefather, grandfather, godfather of this scene. I'm sorry, brother, you're 42, but like these people, they call themselves the elder emos. You're the original elder emo. And I got one more, like this basically. What is your opinion on the state of the scene today?
I heard somebody say this recently, and I apologize. I don't remember where I heard it and who said it, but somebody was commenting on the state, and they made a comment that like really stuck with me. We were saying something about how the early 2000s, it felt like all of the bands were in competition with each other. So it felt like everybody was always like competing. Was that?
There was like a beef or a rivalry.
Yeah.
Like you're talking third wave 2000s emo. Yeah. Like
people wanted to, like, there's rivalries, there's rivalry in music, there's rivalry about like everyone's fighting for this contract. Everyone was fighting for this, this album release and making sure they have this on the charts and blah, blah, blah. Whereas this revival of the music scene has felt more like one of those, all tides lift all boats, and everybody's more excited. And if one band's doing well in the revival, they're shouting out the other bands,
yes,
they're helping them. And it feels more like an actual scene again of camaraderie and of like that connective tissue. And there's not that rivalry. And instead of like one band thinking like, well, if that band's successful, I'm not going to
it takes my spot. Yeah.
But exactly. It's more of a like everyone realizing like, no, this is actually good for everybody if all of these bands are doing well. And you see some bands going on tour together now that probably never would in the past because they were like whatever rivalry or whatnot. And now they're touring together, or they're going, all these bands are going back out on tour to do this sort of stuff together. You've got Good Charlotte and Yellow Card touring in Australia. You've got the Early November and Hello Goodbye getting together. Like you have a variety of things that are happening that are like actually raising the floor for everybody. And that to me is what I like seeing, because it feels so much more like the helping each other part of this that, again, that I talked about before, that like is exciting to me. So that's the part that I've really enjoyed. And I apologize. Somebody tell me who said that recently. It was in some interview. I heard it somewhere and I'm cribbing it. So
no, it's very true. And it's something I noticed as we interview a lot of these younger bands. I'm like, I came up in that, 2000s, this and that. And there's obviously the big band beefs you think of and this and that, but it's like, there was just more rivalry. Even thinking about as a local band, it's like, I got to sell this pre-sale. I got to sell before you, this and that. It doesn't exist anymore. Are you pretty in tune with the scene now, or do you need me to make you a playlist of the newer bands? Are you good?
I feel pretty good about it. I feel good.
Okay.
Combination of the bands that I'm checking out and still listening to the old stuff. Like I try to spend most of my time doing both. And I want the end of my year, when I look back at all the Last FM stats, because I'm that kind of person, I want to be able to see like a good, healthy mix between bands that I've known for years and their new albums and the nostalgia hits. But then I also want to be able to see like a bunch of bands that are brand new that I haven't listened to before, that I've just discovered. And I think that most years that works out. I think that most years it's, around 50-50 of bands that like are brand new listening to that I had not heard before versus stuff that I've listened to for many, many, many years. But I would love any recommendations that you have.
Are you an Apple or a Spotify guy?
I'm on Apple. So anything.
I'm going to send you an Apple playlist. I'm going to make a personal Jason Tate playlist.
Perfect.
Last question before I let you go. And again, thank you for joining me. This was one of the biggest honors of my entire life. Like, I've been such a fucking fan of your website, everything you do. I'm like this last week when you emailed in your, I posted that Grey Wind clip specifically when they mentioned you. I was like, pray to God it makes its way. I call it 60-70 chess. I'm like, I tell people it's on purpose. It's very much on accident where it's like, this is going to find its way to Jason Tate. He's going to see it and he's going to agree to come
Former
talk to me for an hour.
writer that sent it to me, some Dave Gaslin, who used to take photos I think it was Dave. Sorry if it was.
That's awesome.
But it was what he take photos for us. He sent it to me on Instagram and he was like, you'll like this, check this out. And I was like, oh crap. So
that brings me such like a sick, weird level of joy, little things like that. Like even when it was like with the Gabe thing, it was like Rob from Midtown was a year ago plus. Like I talk about Midtown a lot online. He'd be in there kind of thing. I interviewed a band earlier today called Tigerwood. I'm going to include them on your playlist, but their drummer his last name is Hit. And I was like, was your dad or your brother, or your uncle in Midtown, this or that? And he's like, no, I have no idea. I'm like, brother, let me wax poetic about Midtown to you for 10 minutes this interview. But last question to you. What is the Mount Rushmore of the bands maybe that built and are Absolute Punk, Chorus FM in general, personally, professionally, however you want to answer that?
I mean, the easy way for me to do that is like just to look at my wall and see the stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously like Blink-182 and MXPX are like the bands that like started Absolute Punk. Like those are the bands that they didn't exist. I never would have done that. So like for me, it's them. It moves very quickly from there into like the next wave of pop punk where it's Newfound Glory, Fall Out Boy, stuff like that. So like it's that wave of pop punk that feels very core of Absolute Punk. On my side of things, my musical tastes then started moving in a variety of different places. So if you're going to talk about like the core of what makes Absolute Punk or FM, you're talking about Blink, MXPX, you're talking about Jimmy Eat World, Thrice, Gaslight Anthem, the bands that like have
oh my God, I forgot. I found Gaslight Anthem through your site because of Absolute Punk. I found the Gaslight Anthem, my favorite all-time artist to this day, Jason, Bruce Springsteen. That's like my music is a religion to all of us. Bruce Springsteen is the fucking pastor of this. God, yeah, it would have been Senor and the Queen EP. I would have found through like before 59 saying they did that tour with Rise Against and Trio and Thrice.
Those are the bands that really stick out to me. And I mean, you can toss other bands in there as well. You can toss My Chemical Romance in there. You can toss Thursday. You can toss. I mean, we're there for Taking Back Sunday, something corporate, like everything and everything.
Andrew McMahon.
Yeah, Andrew's done in his career. Like there's a variety of bands that have just like been that throughput and have been there through every wave and every stage. But to me, it's those. So Mount Rushmore's definitely got to be Blink, MXPX, Jimmy World, Gaslight Anthem, Thrice, stuff like that. That's where I'd start that conversation, and then probably change it every few days because if we don't love to do on chorus, but rank things. So I'd have to change my ranking a million different times over the course of a year as I decide and move people now based on different things.
Beautiful. Jason, honor of a lifetime to get to speak with you. As a guy that was in a band for many years trying to get featured on Absolute Punk, the fact that this podcast will probably get me the most attention on Chorus FM that I so desperately craved for years.
Incredible.
Very, very validating, very validating. I hope nothing you said in here gets anyone in trouble or gets people too worked up.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Hope you have a great rest of your day and a great
I appreciate you. I'm going to bug you. I'm going to send you over a playlist. I'm going to make you one. I ain't kidding.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
This show is a part of the Never a Phase Network, a collective of creators dedicated to keeping the spirit of the scene alive. Our network of creators make social media content, they share music news and reviews, and of course bring you great podcast content. For more information, please visit neveraphasenetwork.com and follow Never a Phase Network on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
Hey man, it's your boy Petty Hendrix, man. You tuned in to Emo Kid Anonymous. Check it out, you did.